Smartest thing I could do is go out and have coffee now. I'm going to spend all this time with him muttering behind me. It's like riding in the car with my 4 kids years ago. This is the Sunday when we make our annual stewardship report to you, the report on how we're doing relative to our time, treasure, and talent at St. Joan of Arc. And in short, let me tell you that thanks to you, we're doing great. We're in good shape. By way of background, let me also remind you that our fiscal year ends June 30. And we recently received our audit results. Those audit results are now on our website. If you go to www.stjoan.com, go over to the left-hand side and go to About Us, and then under About Us, click Finance. You'll find the full detail of that audit, all 16 plus pages if you'd care to read it. When the Finance Committee was getting the results of that audit, the managing partner stopped in the midst of his results and just said, you know, I continue to be impressed year after year about St. Joan of Arc. When so many other parishes are struggling relative to finances and to attendance, St. Joan of Arc continues to be a strong in attendance, healthy financially, and especially in the area of capital campaigns. And so that was high praise for us, not bad for a small inner city parish. You know, on the other hand, when a lot of us go out to social events and the conversation gets into that forbidden talk about religion, and we say, oh, well, we go to St. Joan of Arc, the reaction is frequently, oh, you go there? I get it a lot at parish business administrators meetings, but it's phrased just a little different. Is like, have you guys been in trouble lately? And I get a little defensive about that, so somehow in my response I work in the fact, and you can mark this down for your conversations, we are currently a parish with about 3,500 registered households. We have almost 9,000 people on our rolls. Every month, we have at least 10 new registered households, 120 a year. Not bad for, yeah. Not bad for a parish that causes trouble, it must pay. Something that a lot of people who are regular parishioners don't know is that we have 6 masses on our campus every weekend. During a recent meeting with the Archbishop, topic not to be discussed, the Archbishop told Jim DeBreiker that St. Joan of Arc is one of the top 5 parishes in attendance on a weekly basis during the course of every year. So we're doing pretty well, thank you. That's yours. You can also note that we have attendance on our records of, or we have a registration of over 200 zip codes. That's not bad for a neighborhood parish. We get people who come not just from our neighborhood or not just from the Twin Cities, but they come from as far away as River Falls, Wisconsin. They will come from places like Rochester, even from Ely on a regular basis. We used to be just a neighborhood parish. The most impressive thing, I think, about St. Joan of Arc is the 90-plus ministries that we have healthy, functioning, and vibrant here in our parish. In this past year, you prayed and picketed in favor of and for migrants and for peace. You packed food for hungry children. You also provided hats, mittens, and jackets for children who are in need of those items. On a regular basis, you provided food, utilities, and rent through the Care Fund. You went out in evenings in a truck all over this city and gave out sandwiches and personal items of clothing and toiletries. And we continue to be strong in this parish, proudly so, of our LGBTQ sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, and in some case, even parents. We've made a strong commitment to the environment, and this parish is not all work and prayer. It's a parish that has a lot of fun with the cabaret and the concert series, again, that you volunteered for, that you have made strong. We've had prayer services this past year and will continue even this week for expectant mothers, caregivers, and veterans. And we mourn the loss of family with over 40-some funerals. We've had a few marriages, and we've baptized a lot of babies. This is just a short look at our parish. There is a lot more noted every week in our bulletin, as well as on our website. And I encourage you, please, to read that bulletin, to look at that website, just to get a feel on a regular basis for what's happening in your parish. And while I'm talking about the activities and the ministries, let me get a few words in here about our St. Joan of Arc staff. As Jim noted, I've worked in archdioceses like New York, LA, and of course in our own diocese. And it's not so much that I can't hold a job, I've just traveled a lot. I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of parishes, and I will tell you honestly, and I am just absolutely convinced of this, the St. Joan of Arc staff is one of the best staffs I've ever experienced. And that includes our clergy. You see a lot of those staffs on weekends here around the gym and around the Welcome Center and in the church. You see them at meetings, but there's also a lot of people that you don't see on a regular basis who do good work in our parish center. And I'm going to make a little digression here. There's two people who are in this gym every Sunday that are really, to some extent, the unseen. But they provide us with the sound that keeps this place going on a Sunday basis. That's Scott Malchow. And the endlessly beautiful and attractive slides that we have that accentuate our Mass and our talks. And that's Pam Olison Kramer back there, too. That covers the time and the talent. So how are we doing financially? If you look at the audit, you'll see that we had a pretty decent year. In February 2020, we will complete collecting the pledges that we had on our Build, Gather, Grow campaign. We raised $2,990,000 in that campaign, and we will honestly collect most of those pledges. That's pretty amazing. The auditors told us put an allowance of 5% aside for uncollectible. We're not even going to come close to that number. Again, thanks to you. Our challenge this year has been our weekend revenue, the envelopes, the APP that are really our strength, our sustaining. We've had an unknown last year with our tax law changes. A lot of people were trying to sort out what it meant to them and what the experience would be. Envelope giving, strangely enough, was up by $75,000, but our APP, our electronic giving, those little red cards, that was off by almost $95,000. Strange, and we really don't know why this is happening. We did see, however, thank you again, Joan of Arc comes through, we saw an increase in spontaneous annual gifts. People just send in very, very generous checks. We also saw an increase in the qualified charitable distributions from IRAs. So All of those elements came together to give us a relatively break-even year on our revenue side. And the expense side, we're pretty rigid on a regular basis, controlling all of the expenses. We have our facilities committee that meets regularly and reviews our efforts, our needs, our capital needs. We're an old building, though. We're an old campus. And each time we get into a project, that project exponentially grows. We just finished remodeling the women's room here in our school. The women's restroom was done first for political reasons, but confession is good for the soul. But when we did that, we found, once we're into the remodeling project, just like anything you would do at home, remember those remodeling projects at home? Okay, we found the same things, corroded pipes too small, so we just started adding work to that project. Came in a little over budget because of that, but that's the kind of thing we're experiencing on an old campus. You can see from the weekly reports in the bulletin that this year, the first 3 months, we have started out kind of slow on our collections. Again, we don't know why. It could be just July, August, and September, people coming back. We pray to God that that will be the case. But we ask you to note that as you get closer to Christmas and your Christmas giving, your end of the year giving, and also as you plan for your contributions to St. Joan of Arc in 2020. We still need the revenue. You are an extremely generous community, almost unequal, but we still need the help. Thank you for hearing me out. I know that I speak for Jim DeBreicher, Jim Cassidy, the entire staff at St. Joan of Arc. Thank you for your presence here, for your support, your commitment to this community, and we welcome you wherever you are on your journey. And now, as I mentioned last week in the bulletin, it's always good to get that little St. Joan of Arc story about how did you find this place, why do you come here? And so I'd like you to meet P.J. Doyle to give us a vignette on her life here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Hi. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. I've been a member at St. John's for quite a while. I first came here in the fall of 1975. It was a rebellious time here at St. John's, and being a recovering peacenik, it was familiar to me from the start. I listened to music. As we heard this morning, there were some familiar tunes, and I just felt a sense of warmth that remains here every Sunday and throughout the week at St. John's. As my FBI file will attest, I've never been one to sit by without comment, and so I appreciated the willingness of St. John's and the staff and the priest and the parish itself to push the envelope. It fit right in with my sense of right and wrong. In fact, growing up as a teenager in Des Moines, I had my first head-to-head with the Catholic Church when I was reading in the Des Moines Register a letter to the editor by the Bishop Doyle of that archdiocese, and he rather matter-of-factly was talking about defending the Catholic Church role during Nazi Germany, which it ruined my connection to the church and ruffled my corn-fed feathers. I took it upon myself to withdraw from the church in protest, much to the chagrin of my family, and in particular my dear sweet godmother. But it was a matter of principle even back then. In the years between, as I moved to Minnesota to go to McAllister, where I became even more ingrained in the peace movement, and found myself from time to time trying to reconnect with the church because I felt so strong that what I had learned as growing up. So each time I did that, it just didn't seem to work until 1975, when I walked in the door here. And after several Sundays in attending to make sure that I wasn't dreaming or that this was some sort of an anomaly, I realized that I had found a home. And as the years progressed, I also noticed back then it was really any discussion of fundraising or charging for any event was a landmine to be avoided at all costs, which made sense to me back then. But as I began to mature in a number of ways over the years and realized the rich resources of this parish and how much it brought to my life and to my sense of values, I began to realize that I needed to protect my spiritual home and consider maintenance as much as I do for the residents I have across the freeway on Stevens Avenue. In particular, the Peace and Justice Ministries remain very close and dear to my heart. Welcome the Stranger, and even though my cross-country protest of nuclear proliferation is past, I still remain active in the community, and it is something that is at the core of my being. And as Father mentioned, I volunteer with the American Red Cross, so I am often across the country responding to disasters. But I also work very closely on the home front with families that have been separated from their loved ones because of conflict across the globe. We try to help them locate and reconnect with those family members. And it is, again, an important part of what we do here at St. John's as well. And seeing the dedication of my fellow parishioners to these kinds of programs and services just reinforces every Sunday the importance of my being here. We are sisters and brothers, and with a responsibility to each other. And God owns it all, and gives us plenty, and we are simply called to share. And I encourage you, as Dennis said, to think about protecting your spiritual connection here at St. John's as you look forward and make it part of your own maintenance plan. Thank you.